All right, good evening. This is the planning board meeting of April 16th, 2024 for the city of Bangor. I welcome applicant, staff, board members, and any members of the public who are here this evening. My name is Reese Perkins. I'm the chairman of the board. Other board members in attendance this evening, Janet Jonas, Mike Basnet, Josh Saucier, Dawn Mahar, Vice Chair Ted Brush, thank you for filling in for me last week, or 2 weeks ago, appreciate that. Chair Hayes, down beyond Josh. Alternate member Jonas will be filling in this evening and voting for member Boucher, who is absent this evening. Board members are volunteers from the Bangor community. City staff members in attendance this evening also are Planning Officer Anya Collette, Assistant Solicitor Grace Innes, and Planning Analyst Brian Scannell. We thank them for their help this evening. The Planning Board has multiple roles. First, we review the amendments to the Land Development Code, which typically include either changes to the zoning districts or changes to text within the code. Our review of these amendments include adherence to the most recently amended comprehensive plan and is in the form of a recommendation to the City Council as to whether the item ought to pass or ought not to pass. The City Council will make the final decision on zoning and land development code changes, typically at the next City Council meeting. Second, we serve as the regulatory authority for land development permits, commonly known as site plan review. We don't have any of those this evening, hence the small meeting, small crowd environment. So I'm going to skip over the technical stuff on that. I would like to remind everyone to keep their cell phones on silence. We will call the applicants in the order they appear on the agenda. When the applicant is asked to present their project or proposal, they or their representative should come forward to the podium and provide a brief introduction to their application. Once the presentation has been made, the applicant should stay at the podium while we consider any questions from the staff and board members. At that time, the applicant may be seated. We will open the floor to public comments, should we have any public here at all. If there are any comments from the public, we ask that the person come to the podium, introduce themselves, where they are from, and indicate if they are for or against this proposal. If they are against the proposal, it is also helpful to present reasons for your opposition based upon the city code and or the comprehensive plan, as these are the primary documents used by the board when making our decisions. If you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand function to let us know you would like to speak and we can bring you into the meeting. All comments and discussion should remain respectful and considerate of all others. Once public comments are completed, we will close that item to public comments. The board will then deliberate on the proposal using the standards as applicable and act on the proposal. The board may approve or deny the project or may otherwise work with the applicant if there are compliance issues that could be addressed with modifications to the plan. The board may continue the application to a future meeting to allow the applicant to modify the plan or for any other reasonable cause. Once a project you are interested in has been reviewed, feel free to leave the meeting, but also you may stay for other project reviews if you'd like. When leaving, please be respectfully quiet as there may be other projects being reviewed at that time. We thank all applicants for taking the time to present their project for our review. This process is important for the city's development and direction for our future. On the agenda this evening, we have a couple of amendments to the Land Development Code. The first one is to amend the Land Development Code to rezone a property located on 1017 Union Street. That's map lot R24-017 from shopping and personal service district to government and institutional service district. The total area requested by the change is 17.45 acres. The applicant is Encompass Health Maine Real Estate, and the owner of record is Union Street Associates LLC. At this time, I would love to have the applicant come forward and make the presentation.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jim Kaiser. I'm here representing Compass House this evening. With me also tonight is several Encompass Health, Serena Davis and Elizabeth Mann. They're here in support and may be available to answer questions that I can't. This parcel, many of you may recall that there was a former driving range out there a number of years ago. It hasn't been in operation, I think, for 3-4 years at this point in time. The nets are still up there, and the area is pretty much fully open as a result of past activities on it and the driving range activity. To give you a little bit of information on Encompass, we have a lot of it in the package that was provided to the board and staff, but Encompass Health is the nation's largest provider of inpatient rehabilitation services. They operate 161 rehabilitation hospitals offering post-acute care to patients that are recovering from acute events such as stroke, heart attacks, neurological events, and other debilitating illnesses. They provide services such as physical rehabilitation, occupational therapy, speech therapy, in an effort to transition patients back into their home environment and society overall. It's important to note that Encompass Health does not offer drug, alcohol, or mental rehabilitation services. The patients usually arrive at the hospital by non-emergency ambulance or transport vehicles. And the operations, even though they're 24/7, their operations are primarily for maintenance, administration and stuff run from 7 in the morning to 8 at night. And then it's just an overnight staff on after that. So it is just kind of during the normal operating hours of a business, personal services and shopping areas and things of that nature. It has been noted that the state of Maine has approved the certificate of need for this facility. And so that's quite rapid, and it puts us in a position where if the board so feels that the zone change would garner a positive recommendation to council, the activity to move forward is going to progress right along and be back in for site development approvals from the board in the future. Like I mentioned, the packet that you gave gives a pretty good overview of the project and the request for zone change. As Reese noted, that the unit or the property is at 1017 Union Street, map bar 24, lot 17. Encompass Health reviewed multiple properties in the Bangor area that were available for purchase and that were on city utilities, water and sewer and storm drainage. The one 1017 Union Street was determined to be the most appropriate, both in size, topography, and access, primary roadway access and those types of natures. From the roadway standpoint, we have a signal existing at at the only access to this property. There's an existing lighted intersection currently that if we go forward, will just be updated to include a fourth leg on a 3-leg access area. The aspect of going to G and ISD services, because that's the only one that allows for hospitals in the district. And this is classified as a hospital just because of the services. Even though it's not your traditional hospital that many of us think of, it is still classified as a hospital, and as such, we have to meet those requirements within the district. Anya and I discussed a couple different options for zoning, And it really came down to this district as being the primary one or the most appropriate one for this facility. And when we reviewed the area of that areas, even though there's a lot of city operations out there, the zone is in the proximity of this area, so it's not like it's being put into somewhere where it's not even present in any portion of the general area. So we've gone through and looked at the surrounding areas. We feel that this facility will fit in there very well. It's not going to be an intrusive facility. It's going to be a single story, so it's not going to stick out, but it's going to be in a position where it's readily accessible and generally it'll fit in. There's several facilities out there in the medical profession or long-term residential aspect of it for memory care and assisted living. So we feel that this is a very appropriate area for this particular facility also. Encompass prepared a nice presentation packet that shows what these types, their facilities and generally what this one will look like, what some of the interior finishes are, the services that are available, the impacts to the city as far as benefits, the tax basis, the wage basis, the economic valuability or enhancement of the community from the standpoint of when they locate in a community with the very well-paying jobs. And I think we looked at the staff's review, and I think the most appropriate thing is pretty much the last sentence on the page, which says it does align well with the comprehensive plan. So with that, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions the board would have for us, and look forward to hopefully bringing this project into the city of Bangor.
Sure, good. Thank you, Jim. One question I think maybe you can talk a little bit about, and then maybe staff can comment a little bit on. You probably know where I'm going. Typically, the way you sort of, referred to it a little bit in your presentation that, we have two-step process here. We change the zone as needed, and then look at a site plan review later on. Encompass doesn't presently own this property that they've applied for a zone change on, is that correct?
Correct, they have a purchase sale agreement with the owner.
And that inclines me to think they're not the ones that should be asking for the zone change, that the owner of the property should be asking for the zone change.
I've done a lot of zone changes, and it depends on it. In a lot of cases, especially in this area, I find people tend to buy the properties and then decide what they can do with them from that standpoint, and maybe go for zone changes at that point in time. The more conventional aspect approaching land sales and viabilities of projects is to basically contract it and then do your due diligence, do whatever is needed to make sure that your project is good before you fully invest in the land itself. So there is the two different approaches to it. Nationally, and bigger companies tend to do it this way, where they put a contract on a property and then do due diligence and take care of things such as zone changes.
Yeah, we do see that a lot with projects in the city, commercial projects mainly, where they are in this purchase sale period, and the applicant wants to get their zone change and know that they're good with that before they finalize the purchase. And I did look through the purchase and sale paperwork, and there was a provision in there that allows the applicant to do a zone change, basically.
Right, and I saw that too. Right. You're both saying what I was hoping you would say, but I just kind of want to get it out there.
Yeah.
And then my other question, kind of more towards Anya, would be, should we make this conditional upon the purchase of the property?
You can't make a zone change conditional.
Okay.
It either happens or it
Or it
doesn't.
doesn't. Okay.
Yeah.
And the owner knows that and has, through the purchase sale, has agreed to
Right.
it. So if we do change it and for some reason something else happens, then the owner has this zoning that.
Right. And that's why it's important to us, because nonetheless, in the end, what could potentially happen is Encompass could walk away for some reason. Not that we want that to happen, but I'm just saying, we've seen it happen. And the zone change would have occurred nonetheless, and then it would be somebody else's possibility.
Yeah, and I think when we were going into this and approaching it, when we were talking about it with Encompass and the attorneys and stuff, is that we kept coming back to the certificate of need, because if that was kind of approved before we came in for a zone change, it gives them a better approach to it to say, yeah, we know we got a project now because the certificate of need has been approved. A lot of times those can take quite an extensive period of time, but to say that it went through in the time since the purchase sale agreement was signed and stuff, it shows that there is a significant need for that facility in this area.
Yep.
So.
Excellent, thank you. That just helps, I think, the board understand where we're at with the project. So,
Yep.
Does the board, I'm sorry, any other comments from staff first?
Nope, I'm good.
No? Okay, all right. Does the board have questions other than what I brought up with the applicant's representative? Nothing. I'm gonna bring up a couple more issues. I did see that in and this, again, maybe is a question more for staff, but I did see in shopping and personal service district, it does allow for medical/clinic, not really a hospital, is that right?
Yeah, it's more small in scale. And I did talk to Brenda in code enforcement, 'cause she does a lot of the zoning interpretation for zoning verification letters, and I kind of went through the different zones with her, and we both determined this GNISD is really the only zone this could go in as allowing a hospital, because this is really more of a hospital in nature, so.
Okay, thank you. And that brings me to my last issue, is this changes the height by quite a bit. Otherwise, I didn't see this changing anything significantly, but it goes from a 40-foot height restriction to an 80-foot height restriction. The application that I saw, which was excellent, as you say, seems to show maybe a 3-story building.
This facility will actually be a 1-story building.
1 story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the height difference is kind of what Anya was getting at, is that the hospital aspect, those typically tend to be, high rise for rooms and everything like that. So that's, I think, where the height differential comes in, but this is really just a single floor. Some of them, I believe, have 2 floors, but I don't think any have more than 2 floors that I've been aware of. It's, this one is proposed for a single story.
No plans at this time to go a full 80 feet.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna open the meeting to public comment, but there is nobody. Oh, yes, sir, you snuck in later. Do you have any questions or comment on this project before we move on? Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here as you have been often lately. And so I will close the public comment for this particular project. Any further review, comments, or discussion by the board at this time? Yes.
I just want to say, I live 2 properties away from this over on Ohio Street. I think it's a great use for that property, and I think even if it were 80 feet, someone that was 80 feet, I think nobody's going to be bothered by it. I think it's a terrific use. There's been some encampments that have come into the woods out there, and it's commercial around it already. It's not much of a change in zoning, and I think it's a good use for that property. And it's sort of fitting, like you've said, with the medical facilities that are around the area. I just wanted to say that I walk by it all the time, and I think it's a great use, and that change is fitting to the area, or it won't impact anything.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments, board members? Let's go to a vote on this item. Roll call vote, and I would need a motion. I'm sorry, I'm getting rusty, I guess. And it should be a motion of ought to pass.
Not to recommend anything.
Yeah, vote to recommend to.
To the city council ought to pass, yep.
Chair,
Member
I'll take a
Saucer.
shot at it.
Yep.
I move that the board makes a recommendation ought to pass to the city council for 1017 Union Street, map lot R2417, from shopping and personal service district to government and institutional service district.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Let's see, we'll do a roll call vote on this. Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Mahar,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Jonas,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Your project is approved by planning board unanimously. Next step, as I mentioned, is city council. That should be next Monday night.
It's Monday, yep.
And
We thank you, and we look forward to being able to
Yeah.
come back to the board for the development plans.
we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
nice
Jim.
night.
All right, you too.
Good night, Jim.
Thanks, folks. All right, next item is to amend the Land Development Code, Section 254, by updating the expiration process for short-term rental licenses and by adding required details for short-term license applications. I'm going to assume that it's Planning Officer Colette
Yep.
going to present.
So this is just clearing up some things that have come up as we're going through the process of implementing the short-term rental platform that people are going to use to register. So one of the main things that it does is it changes the expiration date for licenses from December 31st to May 31st. That will allow us time to get the list of all of the dwelling units in the city as of April 1st, which will be used for the citywide cap. And then B, just having that one date, I think will make it more clear for people. And then also, people are gonna start registering May 3rd or just around that date, and so that'll give everybody a full year with their license. So we felt like that was a good date to use. It also treats any license that is expired as a new license. The ordinance already requires that you have to apply for a new license a month before it expires to give people plenty of time. But basically, it's, if it expires, that's it, and that'll really help us with the cap, to make sure that, if you get it on time, then you're considered a renewed license, and you can, I don't know how to explain it very well, but basically keep your place under the cap system. But if you don't get it in on time, you have to be considered a new license. In case we do get close to reaching that cap, it'll help. And then we also just require some additional details for the license applications, like number of bedrooms, uses in the building, and things of that nature. And also requiring that a 24-hour contact be provided for all short-term rentals, so.
Excellent, thank you. Board members, questions? Frania?
Chair,
Member Bazinet?
I read the verbiage that we were supplied with and tried to get a full understanding of the rules surrounding this. So it's 1% of the available housing stock, right? Or
Yes,
some remuneration of that, correct? And then it's a first come, first served. And one single applicant has a maximum of 5 licenses.
yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. And the only way that the pool of applicants can possibly expand is if someone forgets to reapply the next year or has some circumstance that disqualifies them. What I'm concerned with long-term is locking people out of the market with the cap that we're putting on.
I mean, as the number of dwelling units in the city grows, which it definitely will every year, you're gonna be opening up a few more spots every year, because we did keep it at that percentage, and that allows some flexibility. But I mean, there's always gonna be pros and cons with whichever way you choose, and council at the time indicated they wanted to see a cap and agreed. They like the 1% method. So that's kind of why we went with that.
Do we have any precedents to suggest the 1% has been used in other communities our size?
Honestly, well, of our size, I'm not sure. Bar Harbor uses a percentage, but they cap it at 10%. But they are also a tourism-heavy community. And again, council liked the 1% because they felt like that really would ensure that we had plenty of housing left over for long-term residents. So,
What's the approximate number then of applications that will be made available based on the 1%?
it would be, and I don't have the new number of dwelling units, but it would probably be roughly 160 to 170. And that's non-hosted short-term rentals. The hosted don't fall under that cap.
Okay, so these are the folks that renting a property, available 24/7 if you need anything, but I don't live here and I'm not on site.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. That's reasonable. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Any other board member questions? Let me take a stab at a couple. I sort of felt like the way the dates changed, Anya, that before they were staggered.
Yeah.
And now they're not. And what potentially could happen is you've got 160 applicants that are gonna want to show up before March 31st to reapply.
Yeah, there will be a lag time with getting all the inspections done. But also, the software we're using also only allows one date. So that's also kind of a catch, so.
Potentially, let's say, smarter individual who understands how the system works, they could apply earlier than May 31st to get in the front of the line. It would still be May 31st, and May 31st would be their time, right?
Yes, but I mean, once everybody applies this year, that same subset of people are likely gonna reapply next year, and they'll already be, I guess you could say, grandfathered in. They'll have their place in line already, because they'll just be renewing an application, they won't be applying for a new one.
So they'll just come in with a piece of paper and a check,
Yeah, to renew.
right?
Well, they'll apply online, but essentially, yes, they'll just be renewing, so they won't have to worry about the cap if they're renewing before May 31st.
Which would be most of them,
Yeah,
likely.
yes.
Okay. I was just worried about the whole congestion idea of all these applicants coming in at the same time with applications, but it sounds like it's not that complicated.
Yeah. And also, the ordinance is written so that the applications will only require an inspection every 3 years. Unless something is brought up in the meantime, then they might need one.
Yeah.
But that means, you'll
Staggered.
have a bunch of inspections year 1, and then year 4,
Yeah.
you'll have them, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The only other question I have is like Mike, I read it. I had never seen the term natural person. Can you explain what that means exactly? I mean, I get what they're saying. They want a real person rather than a business.
Yes.
Is that in essence what it means?
Yes, so the ordinance is really careful to differentiate between legal entities, like when we talk about person, we're talking about, businesses, legal entities, whomever is applying, we're calling that a person, but when we actually want to talk about a real person, we refer to a natural person. And the purpose of all that is just to make sure that we don't have people using LLCs to evade
To
the
hide behind,
ordinance.
basically.
Right,
Yeah,
so,
okay, all right. So Right, in this case, because you want to have somebody you can call if there's an emergency or something going on.
Yes.
Police trying to get a hold of the owner, they need a real
Real person.
person with a real phone. That's a
Yes.
natural person, okay.
Well, I think the other thing is that somebody can have 5 LLCs and each limit out on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And the Supreme Court has said numerous times that corporations are persons, so that's where the term came from. I guess.
yeah, okay, thank you. Never seen that term. Okay, that, with that,
One other comment?
yes, Mr. Besnett?
When you do open the application process, you're probably going to have a flood of people trying to get in, get their place in line reserved. What if you have a server crash, or is there any potential for the system to become overloaded?
well, our monitoring indicates there's only about 70 rentals right now, although there could be people that have stopped renting in this grace period, so there could be more.
Okay.
I think there, maybe a server crash is in the realm of possibility if there's like 1,000 people applying, but I think it'll be closer to like 100 to 200 if that.
Okay.
So I don't think it'll be an issue.
I have no idea how many there would be. This is all new territory, so if you don't see it, if you see it under 200, then
Yeah.
I would agree.
And if, you know, there have been other situations where local governments or businesses open something up and it crashes and they figure it out. So like we would figure it out, but I don't see it being a problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm gonna open this up for public comment. You, sir, do you have any public comments? Okay, thank you. I'm gonna close this for public comment. I see nobody on Zoom. And I would be interested in a motion on the proposal, typically recommending to the council ought to pass.
I'll do it.
Yes, Member Brush.
So I move that the board recommend to city council to approve the amendment of the Land Development Code, Section 254, short-term rental licenses by updating the expiration process for short-term rental licenses and adding required details for short-term rental license applications.
Excellent, thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Bazinet?
Yes,
Member Jonas?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Unanimous approval on that item as well. And that will also go to city council next Monday night. That concludes everything but other business. For other business this evening, we have adoption of notice of decision for 230 Beaumont Road. Fairly simple, unless you were not there. Remember, Saucier, you weren't at that meeting, were you?
I was at the 230 Beaumont. Yeah, I remember
You were there.
reviewing a
Yeah.
project. Was it site plan? Yeah.
You were there.
Okay, everyone else was there for that one? Let's do a roll call vote. Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Maher,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Bazinet,
yes.
Member Jonas.
I wasn't,
You weren't at that one.
no, I was there, but I wasn't voting
Voting.
at that time.
Okay, thank you. So next, Member Jonas for the vote on the adoption, and the chair votes yes. So we have voted unanimously to adopt the notice of decision for 230 Beaumont Road. Adoption of notice of decision for 727/729 Broadway. And this was the same meeting, so I'm gonna assume it's all the same members. Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member,
I think you might need a motion.
I'm thinking that too. It occurred to me as well, so I need to go back to the first one, don't I? We didn't do it, did we do it? We didn't get a motion on the first one, right?
No.
No, okay. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be.
1 week off.
Yeah, maybe vacation hasn't quite come out of it. All right, let's go back to the first one. Adoption of notice of decision for 230 Beaumont Road. I will ask for a motion on that.
So moved.
Member Maher, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Member Saucier, got that one? Now, a roll call vote. Hayes?
Yes.
Maher?
Yes.
Saucier?
Yes.
Brush?
Yes.
Bazinet?
Yes,
And the chair votes yes. So again, unanimous on 230 Beaumark Road. Motion on the adoption of decision for 727, 729 Broadway.
Chair? I would make a motion that planning board adoption of the notice of decision for 727 slash 729 Broadway.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Bazinet?
Yes?
And the chair votes yes, so unanimous adoption of the notice of decision for 727, 729 Broadway. The third one is adoption of notice of decision for 516 Union Street. I was not at the last meeting, so I am not voting on that. Was there anyone else?
I was not either.
You were not either, so you're out on that one. Everyone else good? I would like a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Member Rush?
I move that the board adopt the notice of decision for 516 Union Street.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second. Member Jonas?
No, you do it.
I
She
get
got
to
her
do this
hand up
one.
quicker
I get
than
to do
you.
this one.
No, she beat me.
And so,
I should have looked at
roll
that.
call vote, Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Maher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Jonas?
Yes.
And so you have unanimous vote on adoption of notice of decision for 516 Union Street. Meeting minutes, there are none this evening. I did add to the agenda a last minute item, and I would ask that Planning Officer Anya Collette just give us a little discussion, because it turns out that the city is going out for bids on rewriting the city code. And I thought it would be interesting if she would just introduce us to what's going on there, why it's happening, and tell us a little bit about the process, because we will be involved in that process.
Yep, so it's an RFP, request for proposals for a consultant to help us write our land use plan, or implement our land use plan, I should say, that was laid out in the comprehensive plan. And this is basically a requirement whenever you do have a comprehensive plan, you need to change your zoning to align with that. And also, it makes sure that, like, when you have a zone change come before you, that you are acting in accordance with that comprehensive plan whenever you make your decision on the zone change. In addition to just changing the zoning itself, it will also be looking at other aspects of our land development code to make sure that it aligns with all of the strategies that were laid out in the comprehensive plan and the implementation section that specifically refer to the land development code. And it will also be incorporating things like the climate plan that we just finished, strategies in there on land use. And then in addition to that, there will of course be meetings with you all and council and extensive meetings with the public and other stakeholders to incorporate all that feedback into the process as well. So we hope that we can start on that process this summer. So, and it will probably take roughly 2 years. It will be a pretty extensive process. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Portland's recode process, but it's essentially the same thing as what they're doing, so.
Chair?
Yes, Member Bazinet?
So the criteria for selecting a successful candidate, price, outlook, how they view codes, what's the criteria?
So the primary criteria will be their qualifications. Do they have planners on staff? Do they have engineering resources at their disposal, legal resources? Have they done similar projects in the past, and have they done similar projects in Maine? So it'll primarily be based on their merits, and then we would look at their actual cost proposal.
Okay,
That is public. If you would like to see the proposal, it is on the city's website.
oh, it's already up there?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
out.
yeah.
I'm not sure where, but I've looked at it.
So when you go to the city's homepage, there's a tab on the side, it's bids and proposals, and it's under that.
Okay,
So you can actually look at it.
All right.
It's worth reading. Yes.
What's
Member
the timeframe? When do the proposals due?
I believe they're due May 8th or around then.
Yeah, and then there's like 3 weeks for questions, as I
Yep.
remember, so it ends up being the end of May before they
Questions are due within a week or two, and then we give them our responses a few weeks after that, and then proposals are due after that time. I could have the date wrong on when the proposals
No,
are
I
due.
think you do, but I think there's a time period for questions after the proposals are in. In other
No.
words, if you weren't chosen, you can ask why, sort of?
No, usually questions are questions for clarification about the proposal. And it's always before the proposal is actually submitted, just so they know they can edit their proposals
Yep.
based on the responses.
Okay, anyway, it's on there, if you wanna see it.
Is there a potential for, let's say you have 3 candidates that are bidding, of which I don't know who's bidding or anything like that. Could there be 3 interpretations of how to do things?
Yeah, I mean,
You know, when we get down to the actual wording of the statute, would they all be the same? It's just the legwork to get there? Or could there be 3 different interpretations of the wording and how that ends up?
well, I think the wording is all gonna depend on the feedback we get from you all and from the public throughout the process. I mean, and the wording is gonna be, it's gonna be recommended by us, and it's gonna come before you as a land development code amendment, and then go to council, so it'll all be up to us. You know, the consultant just helps us synthesize everything and recommend best practices and things like that.
Okay, so we're controlling the process.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, great. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of simplifying, which our code isn't, and I'm not sure it can be simplified completely, maybe, but anything we can do to simplify it, I think, and make it easier for the public to understand it is beneficial. Of course. So yeah, I would certainly encourage you all to get involved and speak up and say if you have any questions or comments on that.
Just one quick
Yes,
question.
Brandon,
They'll define their process in the proposals anyway, right? I mean, that's what you're expecting from them, and that's how they're selected.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not gonna give us specifics of, you know, what's gonna change in the land development code. We won't know that yet, because that's part of the process, so. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does,
Okay.
yep, yeah.
Okay, enough on that one. And does anyone have anything else this evening? This is great when we have a quick meeting. I mean, everyone likes it, I'm sure, but this is also your chance if you have anything else to say. So if not, I'm gonna call this an adjournment. And good night, everyone. Thanks for your help.
I do just need you all to
Oh, we
sign.
have to sign our decisions. Don't forget. And don't sign the one you can't sign.